Thanks for tuning in this morning. It's live Q&A today, so if you've got questions, put it in the comments and we'll answer those. And we're just waiting for all the channels to dial up here, so bear with us for a minute and we'll make sure that you're able to tune in. Give us a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. And it looks like we're live on all of our channels, which is great. And today we have a special guest, Matt Stone, celebrity chef, You Beauty, here in Bangalow, a local town just nearby. And he's got a wealth of knowledge across all things food and honey. Now you've had a little bit to do with Flow Hives, haven't you?
We have, yes. So a close friend of mine and yours as well, Joost Bakker, he's had Flow Hives for as long as I've known him. I think he might have got some of the first ones that were put out from memory. So I've sort of seen them, I've been around them a lot. I've used the honey a lot. He's supplied our restaurants in Melbourne from them. And then our last project that we did together, Future Food System, we had a Flow Hive on the roof and it was phenomenal. It was about probably not even 10 meters from our kitchen door, so we didn't even need to bother to fill them up this much. We just kind of took what we needed, and it was a really well, of course when the hive needed to, but when we just kind of needed bits and pieces, it was so nice. And just to be able to watch the bees flying in and out and around, and just realizing that bees aren't angry. Like, bees are cool. They're pretty chill when they've got everything they need around them. So as long as they've got a nice environment and some water and nice blossoms to be eating from, and you kind of leave them alone, they leave you alone as well.
I remember watching The Greenhouse, the film that Joost made about your experience in producing food in that Future Food Systems. It was amazing, wasn't it? Because it was like this little house in the middle of Fed Square in Melbourne, and it was just totally covered in food production. And was the idea that you lived there and you could eat completely from...
Yeah, so we had a 96 square metre footprint in the middle of Federation Square, which couldn't be any more central in Melbourne. And we constructed a 3-level building that had 24 species of mushrooms growing, around 200 varieties of edible plants. We had trout, we had barramundi, we had native mussels, and we had yabbies. So the idea was to create a self-sufficient ecosystem to nourish the residents, the people that lived in the house, but we ran it as a small 14-seat restaurant, just so we could share the experience with people. And when you read about these things or see them, you know, they kind of look great, but once you're involved in them and you can feel it, and you know, this building, it smelt alive, it felt alive, you felt different when you're inside it. So it was a really important thing to share that with people.
So not only you produced enough food for yourselves, but also enough to share with guests.
It was a small restaurant. It was only three services a week of 14 people, so it wasn't a huge amount, but
still, from just basically an urban footprint, you were able to produce enough food to not only yourselves. So it's incredible.
And because we couldn't produce sugar, honey was an integral part in bringing sweetness to our dishes. So honey just replaced the jar of caster sugar, and we just developed recipes in different ways.
And how did you find the flavour of the honey in the recipes?
I found it's batch by batch. You know, in the spring it's a lot more, what I found, it was lighter and more floral, and as things cooled down, production slowed, but we got a denser, richer, more like almost to the molasses side of flavour in the honey. So it's just batch by batch, and it's interesting because bees, correct me if I'm wrong, they can travel around 5 k's from a hive?
Yeah, certainly.
So, you know, imagine the diversity from Federation Square, from what we had growing on the building, to the Botanical Gardens, to North Fitzroy, like, you know, across a city like that. At 5 kilometres, it changes a lot.
It's really interesting. People in the city often report and boast, actually, that they get a longer honey season and more different types of flavours because of the diversity of flowering species that people are planting. Whereas in the rural areas, like here, we obviously get a lot of diversity. Have a look at these honey colours here. These are the spring ones that come in, but often in some rural areas you get a big flowering of a couple of things in spring and summer, and then it might be not as much the rest of the year. Whereas in the city you get people planting things kind of year round, which like us, bees need diversity. So often bees do really well in the city, and it's an amazing thing for people to be able to do, to be able to produce food from just a small footprint like that. whether it be on a balcony or...
Yeah, I mean, to produce such an amazing high quality product in an urban environment taking up that much space, it's pretty phenomenal. And you think of, I really believe that cities need to be producing more food. There's all of the things there. There's, grey water to water plants. There's different, cities are generally warmer as well because of all the concrete and buildings. So you can have things flowering a little bit longer as well. And it's such an easy thing to put a hive in on the city to make a space which was dead of food production to producing, some amazing stuff pretty simply.
It's definitely a really important part. The humans getting back to the garden, producing their food and getting their food locally.
Absolutely.
Let's harvest some honey.
That's why we're here.
And see what the flavour of today is. So let's have a look. It's pretty easy to turn today. Sometimes it's quite hard, depending on how the bees have waxed up the parts of the flow frames. You can see it's quite light as well.
Yeah.
My guess is it's the privet which has been flowering here in the, it's kind of a weed, but not to the bees.
Yeah.
And it has this really, well, let's have a see of the flavour. You can do the honours.
It's so light.
I know, and I love the light colours that come in because...
Whoa, it's almost citrusy.
Better check this. Oh,
like it's got an acidity, acid level to it.
It's not the, it's actually got a fair bit of the Goya or wild quince, it gets called. It's just really bright flavour, isn't it?
Yeah, that's delicious.
Yum.
And so how much is one frame holding? Like the jar's what, 2 kilo, 2.5 something? Or
Yeah, so
that much?
3 kilograms.
3 kilograms?
A bit more sometimes, like that one filled to the top, whereas this one didn't. So it really just depends on how the bees actually build out their comb and cap it off and so on.
Of course, yeah.
But if you taste this one...
Yeah, how's the colour on that?
I know, look at that. It's like...
it looks like treacle or...
Hard to see through. Have a drink of that one.
The fragrance is completely different.
Yeah, isn't it ever? Let's get a taste of that.
But even the density of it's different. The mouthfeel and the texture is quite different. But much deeper and richer in flavour.
It is, it really is.
And like all of these have, you can use pretty much honey for any of the ingredients that require honey, but when you're at this level, you can be really specific with, I find flavours in here that I might like to use with like sort of more wintry fruits like apples and quinces because it's got a bit more body to it. But then on something like a mango, that would kind of crush the brightness of that, but then that floral honey would enhance that. So like you can get really specific when you have this catalogue, this library of flavours, which you've done. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, isn't it incredible? And just coming in the one location. Not to mention if you go further afield and start collecting honey from other areas, if you go inland a bit, you get all of those eucalypt flavours that are really distinct in their own way.
If you've got hives on the coast, do they take any salinity and salty flavours to the honey? Or
not that I've noticed. I've got a whole lot of hives just over that hill there, quite close to the coast, and I haven't noticed any salt in it, but you'd think there would be because of the salt on the nectar, the salt spray.
Yeah, and as simple as bees running over stuff that's covered in salt and bringing that back into the hive. If they're walking on something that's got a coastal salt spray across it, I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting to think about.
I suspect that they process that themselves because bees need minerals.
Okay.
So bees will go for a little bit salty water over fresh water, and that's why you see them going, they'll prefer to suck on some wet mud than they will on just a total fresh water source.
Because they're getting other nutrients out of it.
Or if you put 2 jars of water out, they'll go to the one you put a little bit of salt in because bees need minerals. So I suspect that if they are bringing in minerals from foraging close to the sea, then they'll be using that for their bodies, not for their honey production.
Yeah, interesting.
So we're also going to do a brood inspection, and it's also live Q&A. So if you've got questions for either Matt Stone or myself, chime in. Matt's a food expert, so anything to do with food and flavour, you might like to ask some questions.
I'll do my best.
Putting you on the spot.
That's okay.
And yeah, so it's all about bees, all about honey, flow hives, and we'll get going. You have opened up a hive before, right?
A long time ago. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago. So.
And you're just building another hive now?
Yes, so we just put together a flow hive yesterday at our pub, the Eltham. So we've put it together out there, and we've got a lovely flower and herb garden in the back of the pub where it's sitting nicely. And then the town of Eltham has a huge bunch of different fauna and flora around, and it's right on the river as well. So it'll be interesting to see what effect that might have on the bees as well. But yeah, we've set that up and we'll get that rolling. So if anyone is coming past the pub and wants to have a look, just chat to the staff and see if they've got a minute to go and show you the hive, to check it out for sure. But yeah, I can't wait to pull our first harvest honey from there.
Beautiful. My dad, co-inventor, plays on the Irish night there.
Oh, he does too. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
it's good fun.
It's a great local.
Yeah.
Any questions coming in?
Yes, Cedar. I'll
You might have to get a little closer.
I know, I've got to get in it. It's a question
Come on,
for Matt, actually.
jump in.
Tracy's going to read out your questions if you put them in.
Matt, it's a question we get asked quite a lot, I suppose, especially you as a cook and a chef and everything. When you do substitute the honey for sugar, do you use the same amounts? Does it vary on what you're...
It really varies. So, for example, if you're using, say, making a pickle liquid and using salt, sugar and water to balance it, you are replacing honey, but honey's flavour would be much more predominant. So it depends what you want. That could be great for, say, you're pickling some semi-green stone fruit or something like that. It's really dependent. Baking, it's really different, and I'm not the greatest baker. I don't excel in that at all. That's where it would have most variance, I would think, because pastry and dessert recipes are very precise. So I feel in kind of general loose, fun weekend savoury cooking, just work it out for yourself with your own palate. Baking, I'd do a bit more investigation.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always tricky, isn't it? I guess that creaming butter and sugar is how
Yeah.
you're going to do it with your honey, and is everything going to rise or
Yeah.
flop or...
Yeah, beyond my pay grade, that one, but in savoury food, just give it a go to taste, I reckon.
Yeah, fantastic.
Trace does amazing things with honey here. We've been hooked on the honey and chili jams with the rosellas. She gets the rosellas.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And the whole team
They're nice
here.
and tart, so that'll work with the honey.
Yeah, it works well, and I wasn't sure because sugar, it's not going to work without the sugar, and how's it going to preserve it? But I made rosella jams, we grew them all here, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful, and then added the chilies and made chili rosella jams.
Yum.
I just try and make anything I can, and just use honey for everything now really that we cook with, that miso dish rather than the sugar, use the honey.
Yeah.
All of those sorts of things. I just love it.
Yeah, I find you can this. Not much I don't think you could substitute either or for, but it's just that kind of flavour profile you're after, I guess. But flavour and taste is so subjective to the person. Some things that I like, it could be a premium ingredient that I like, other people can't stand the flavour. So it's really subjective. And I think that's when you're cooking, something you really have to understand, because you might make something to the T of the recipe and you don't quite like it, because there's maybe something in there that you don't like. And just look at those things, and it's okay to go, I'm going to change it up and have a go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, it's going to be so interesting to see what colour honey you're going to get.
I know, I can't wait.
I know. We might have to go there, Seeds. Do a live, don't you think?
We'll do a live on our first harvest.
So chime in with your questions for Matt Stone if you're just tuning in. Matt Stone's he's the head chef at U Beauty in Bangalore. He's also setting up hives at the Eltham, our local here. And he's got a wealth of knowledge, food, honey. He's been in a house in Fed Square in Melbourne that's produced all the food for himself and others coming in with flow hives, and had a great experience harvesting actually even honey before it was quite ready.
Yeah, which I don't know if that's a bit naughty or not, but...
Well, it's all... The great thing is when you've got a new invention or a new product, people use it in all different ways you might not expect.
Yeah, well, I think for us it was mostly Yost getting excited when we had school groups coming through for tours, because the kids could really resonate with this. So he would often just mid-tour just go, "Hey guys, who wants to try some honey?" and pull it out, and there'd be kids with their arms in it and they'd make a mess. But it was through the genuine excitement of wanting to share it with people. And I think given that situation where we had the opportunity to have groups of school kids coming through, it was on site for all of our dinner guests. I think that was a really good way to use it, just to get people talking about it. And people are so funny. that are traditional beekeepers to flow hive bees, and it's like it just sparks argument. It sparks conversation.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You ask two beekeepers, you get 5 different answers. It's definitely like anything where people get passionate about it. You get strong opinions, and you know, in the end, it helps us all learn. So it's a good thing.
Absolutely. No, it's great. And just showing that. But that's like, how impressive is that? We're a few minutes in and we've already harvested, I'd call that 500 grams of honey.
Yeah,
a bit more maybe.
Actually, I must confess, I accidentally chose the same frame we harvested last week. So
it's a little low.
Normally that'd be mostly full by now.
Okay.
But that's okay because we got to experience the latest flavour that's just coming in, which is that Goya or wild quince.
Yeah, which is
cold.
really lovely. Like,
Really
I quite
bright.
like it. I quite like to ferment honey as well. Like, you know, some of the first alcoholic drinks were mead, which is fermented honey. But we make mead and then ferment it further with a vinegar mother. So then we end up with mead vinegar.
Oh,
and when you
nice.
get the sour and sweet flavour together, like, you're already exciting your palate so much from that, which is really cool.
Mouth's watering.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we put some on yesterday, so in about a month I'll bring you some to try.
Yeah, awesome. Love to. All right, let's open up a hive, get in, have a look at some
let's do
bees.
that.
We're going to need to protect ourselves with a bee suit. We'll get out the smoker. I'll grab the smoker from here.
And I just must say, Cedar, this is beautiful. All of this setup and all of this, like, it's functional and it's like aesthetically very pleasing. It's a nice little toolbox.
Thanks. Yeah, it's handy because I'm a bit of a creative type, so I leave everything everywhere. I can't find anything.
Yep.
So having a box to put it all in does help. Now,
Well, just for a home beekeeper, just to have it all together, it's all the efficient stuff that you need. It's a good way to do it.
So this little hive, we actually did a split last week. So not expecting to find a queen because the queen's gestation will be 16 days, but we might find a queen cell. If we're lucky, we might find that they've built a peanut-shaped cell with a queen being raised inside it. So
Really?
that's what we'll be looking for.
Cool.
If we're unlucky, there'll be none, and this hive will be queenless and slowly die out. So it's good to check. If they've got a queen cell, great. If they don't, then we might even add one from another hive
Okay.
to keep it going.
And do they often reproduce like that? Or is it just a case by case?
So that's called a split, where you take some frames from another hive and put it in another one. If they've got an egg down the cell,
Okay.
then that's what you look for. I have to admit, last week it started pouring rain in the middle of it, so I'm not sure if it was my best work. We had to just kind of put it all in and get out of the rain.
Hope for the best.
But it was, let's have a see whether they did raise a queen cell or not.
Cool. Well, I've never seen this before.
So I'll just
Right.
make sure I get done up here.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we'll
I
be
figured there might have been someone else
opening
there.
the hive. Might do better with a full bee suit, but we'll see how you go.
Danger.
But stings on the face are no fun, so
Yeah.
it's good to keep them out of there. And we'll just tilt this forward.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
better.
Oh, yeah.
And next we're going to be lighting the smoker. We'll have our gloves handy. It's always good to protect yourself if you're near the
Oh, yeah.
bees. Don't do what Matt's doing and go legless.
Go on rogue.
Wear your pants. But I think they will be pretty calm today. So I'm just using pine needles to give this a bit of a light, and I'm cheating to speed it up by using this blowtorch. If I can get it going. It's got something jammed in it.
I've got 2 lefts.
Okay, if you're in a fire time, obviously be careful. We're not here, we've had plenty of rain, but putting your smoker onto a metal garbage bin lid is a great idea. Tips for lighting smokers: don't stuff it full straight away. Just add a little bit, let it catch a light, keep puffing, add a little bit more, make sure it's really going. If I stuffed it full now, even though it looks like it's really going, it would go out. Also, it's going to get hot. It's not hot yet because we're only just lighting it, but wear your gloves if you're new to beekeeping. Protect yourself from burns from your smoker. I have heard of people getting brand names that are on smokers branded into them, so don't do that. And wear your gloves and use a tool to press it down once the smoker gets hot. But there it is, going there now. So, and if you're going gloveless, you can smoke your hands. New to beekeeping, wear your gloves. And we're going to be getting right into the brood nest here. So it's only a small colony, so a couple of puffs here in the entrance is all we need. We'll put the smoker down at the front, so any returning foragers will get a whiff of the smoke. It will help them change modes into hopefully a nice calm mode so that we can do our beekeeping. We'll take off the roof there, and then we're going to get our Hive tool, this one, which you can have a go at, and just you've done this before, so you
You need to refresh my memory though, it's been a while.
can prise the lid off.
And we just tick it up like that way?
Yep, that's it. So you're just getting under the corners and just gently lifting it off. Now we only put 3 frames in from the neighbouring colony, and let's have a look at what they're doing. There's plenty of bees, which is a good sign. A lot of bees up here. Now we're not expecting a queen yet, but it's good practice to have a look at the inner cover if it's right on top of the brood nest, just in case you've got a queen on there. So you're having a look around, you can see that the ones, the bigger bees with the eyes touching in the middle, that's the drones.
Oh yeah.
They don't have any stingers, so if you're going to pass a bee to someone to hold, you can grab the drones.
Oh wow.
No stingers, the boy bees. And if you do that with the workers, you're likely to get a sting in your finger. So we generally put that up against the hive so that if there was a queen on it, she could just walk back in. She doesn't fly very well when she's in egg laying mode, so if you orphan her from the hive, she might not actually make it back.
Yeah.
So next we can pull out one of these edge frames, which is probably just empty.
Cool. And just pick it up.
And put it aside so that we have space then. So
What's the best way to get in there?
So the best way is to go sideways first.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is adding a bit of leverage there, and it's breaking that propolis, which is the join they put,
and then we can hook it.
the glue they use made from tree sap. Yeah, then you can hook it like that against the next frame, and out it comes. And what you've got there is just an empty wooden frame. And you'll notice we've got a comb guide at the top here, so the bees generally will start building their wax from that and hang it neatly down. That's called foundationless. However, a lot of beekeepers do like to add a wax foundation in, or a plastic foundation in the frame. So
these to kick off from.
Frames can accommodate that too. We generally don't, we just let them build naturally.
Oh good.
So that can just lean up against the hive.
Yeah.
And we can then keep going sideways like this and marvel in at the world of bees.
Oh.
So they're festooning there. See them hanging onto each other?
Yep.
It's said to be scaffolding for building comb.
Ah. Okay, that's cool.
And yeah, I think we're still learning a lot about bees, but that is a fascinating thing, the way they just hang onto each other.
That's amazing.
So now we've got one frame out, it's pretty easy to go across, and we can actually use the smoker to get them out of the way as well. But it'd be interesting to see what's on this next frame. Oh, look at that.
We've got a comb.
So they've built that in this last week.
That's so cool. It's so perfect as well.
Right on the comb guide, which is what we like. If it wasn't, we would nudge it back in line. And it's very delicate at this time, so we want to be careful not to tip it sideways.
Yeah. But it's just so perfect. It's like how perfect Mother Nature is.
I know. Isn't it amazing? I can see they've been recycling a bit of wax, which is interesting.
And how can you see that?
The colour, it's usually white, although it's quite a light yellow, so sometimes the new waxes they build can be bright yellow, but because it's not bright yellow or white, they've actually mixed in a bit of wax that they've pilfered from the 3 frames that they started with. So they do a bit of recycling in the hive as well.
It's pretty cool.
Rebuilding, remaking. So a little bit of nectar shining down the cells, I can see.
Oh yeah, I can.
See it there?
Yep.
So they're collecting a little nectar. Not much going on yet, it's just a week in with quite a small split. So if we take out this next one, this will be one of the original ones from the neighbouring hive there, and we'll see whether they have made a queen cell. Just gently coming up. You can still see a whole lot of brood, which is great.
Yeah.
So 1 week in, all of the young larvae has built the cocoons, spun the silk cocoons around themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the brood there. So that's the worker brood.
Okay.
If I really wanted to have a good look at that, I would shake all the bees off. However, a little tip, when you're in the delicate phase of them raising a new queen, you could dislodge her if she's in a queen cell. So you have to be careful not to shake too much when they're raising a new queen. So you could dislodge the young larvae in the queen cell.
And does it look distinctively different?
Yes, it'll look like a peanut-shaped cell because she's much bigger hanging down.
Okay.
Any questions? Throw it in. If you've got questions for Matt Stone or myself, we're doing a bit of beekeeping here today. Matt's setting up a hive at the Eltham, which is the Eltham Hotel is nearby here. Wonderful place. Not only to get a good meal, but good entertainment, with, especially when my father's playing his on the Irish night,
Tuesday nights.
We've got pollen here, or the bee bread. So the bees have gone out to the flowers. As they get close to a flower, the pollen grains leap off the flower onto them with this static charge, right? Then they get all of that pollen and comb it back to their hind legs that we call their pollen baskets. They bring those balls back to the cells and they
I see.
Then push it down the cells with their heads, add some enzymes, top it with honey and ferment it into a sourdough. And that is the primary food for the young larvae. They don't want to eat it unfermented. It's a bit like us, it's much easier to digest when it's been fermented, yes. So you see all the colours in here. If I get a few bees out of the way, look at that. We've got a lot of oranges.
Australiana colours as well, isn't it? Orange and red dirt kind of vibe.
True. True, yeah. Sometimes you get blues, but it's rare. Blue pollen. You get whites, oranges, lots of yellows, and variety is what they need, just like us.
Yep.
It's their protein, so they need a variety of protein in order to be healthy. Okay. I'm not seeing a queen cell on that, although I would have to brush some bees off to get a really good look. Let's have a look at the next one in case it's on there. I'm really hoping they've raised a queen. If not, we'll give them another go at it.
And how long will you leave for them not to produce one before you have to do something different?
If they haven't produced one in 2 weeks, then I'll add another frame with some eggs and they can have another crack at raising a queen from that, because the way it works is if they feed the young larvae royal jelly for its entire gestation or its grub phase, it will turn into a queen. As soon as they feed that young worker larvae plant proteins, then it will turn into a worker bee. So
no way.
On day 3, so any of these bees, the worker bees, could have been a queen if they hadn't have been fed bee bread. They would have been a queen.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And is there ever excess of queens where you might get more than one?
Yes, yes. Often there's been more than one, particularly in a changeover moment. Yep. But you can get strange coexistences of queens. And I wish they would have more than one. It'd be certainly easier. You wouldn't get the queenless hives, right? But You can also manipulate the hive to have multiple queens by running a brood box, then an excluder, queen excluder,
Oh yeah.
then a couple of honey supers, then another queen excluder, then another brood box on top with a top entrance. And some beekeepers really love that method because if one queen fails, the other queen's still laying, and you can get a lot of production out of that hive because you've got two queens laying bees.
And is that harder to manage then?
It is a little bit because it doesn't always work, and you've got to get in there and check and manipulate a bit more. So generally we just go with one and keep it simple.
Yeah.
So I'm just using the smoke to clear some bees away so we can pick up those end bars a bit easier and have a look at that next frame.
And is there an estimate on how many bees would live in a thriving hive of this size?
So this hive's just starting out, so there might be 10 or 15,000 bees in there now, probably on the lower side. And then in this hive that's got a lot of bees, it could have maybe 20 or 30,000 bees, and then a colony that's really going strong might have 50,000 bees.
Wow.
And the amazing thing is, if you start doing some numbers on pollination, and let's say half of those bees went out pollinating, so you had 25,000 bees and they all did 2 trips and they all pollinated at, 1,000 flowers or so, you end up with 50 million flowers pollinated from a single hive in a day.
Far out. That's insane.
It's like a blowout.
So for our agricultural system, this is vital as well, right? To be pollinating and to making sure, especially like in this area where there's so much food production, like there has to be a lot of pollinators to make sure that keeps happening.
Yeah, it's one interesting thing. Humans have dragged this species all around the world with them wherever the agriculture has travelled, and now we're intertwined.
Yeah.
You take them away, and all of a sudden we don't get the almonds, we don't get the coffee, we don't get, and if people go, oh yeah, whatever, there's plenty of foods to eat, well, let's take away wine, chocolate, coffee, and then people are really complaining.
Yeah, so hang on. You can't lose that stuff.
Hang on, let's keep the bees.
Yeah.
So it's a good.
And do you have any fear of bee extinction in the next couple of decades or century? Is that a thing that's like people like yourself are thinking about, or?
Oh, certainly in regards to the wider term of bees, but Apis mellifera we will keep looking after, and it's easy to split them and continue, like when we have big crashes in numbers because there's a pest or disease, then we can quickly build up again and we can keep that effort in order to keep enough of these bees, right? But then you go to the native bees, which play a critical role in pollination for all sorts of species, and we're losing bees that we don't even know we have. We've got insect numbers halving in many countries across the board. So we do have a real problem, and we're in the 6th mass extinction human created, right? So it's a big deal, and it's why we put a lot of effort into habitat. So we've got a fundraiser called the Beekeeper.org, which is a great online course you can get training from experts all around the world. And we raise funds for the bees for habitat. We've planted 1.5 million trees in high quality ecosystems around the globe now.
Wow.
And so we're passionate about bringing back the habitat. And David Attenborough says we need to rewild our world.
Yeah.
And you can do that in your own backyard. You can do that by leaving areas just unmanaged. You can do that by creating pollinator gardens.
And even as simple as in a city like Sydney or Melbourne, on your balcony you could have some chrysanthemum flowers, some parsley, and a few different little things that are aesthetically quite nice. You're minimising waste with herbs, particularly because you're not buying them in a plastic bag from the shop, throwing half out because you never need it all. But you're also creating all of this population for bees to be able to hang out and eat and have a good time. And that's like in an urban environment. So it's all possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And where you were with Joost Bakker, that was a shining example of how humans can live and thrive with everything they need in an urban footprint.
Yeah.
It's incredible and inspiring. So many people are doing great, inspiring work.
And these things as well, it is really satisfying to produce your own food, even on a small scale, and nothing's too small. It becomes quite daunting. You can fall in a rabbit hole of sustainable food, growing your own, and it becomes quite overwhelming. But if you just wait, the way I've approached it and the way I advise to approach it is one thing at a time. Nothing's too small, even if it's starting with a pot of parsley, starting with taking your own coffee cup to the shop, just those little things, and one by one you can be doing this much better. And then you might find yourself in a position where you want to get a beehive, and then you're never going to spend a cent on honey for the rest of your life. Like it's a win-win.
Totally. It's
Are these the peanuts?
well spotted. What we have here is a queen cell. So
we're on
here.
Oh, that's it. It's a peanut.
It's a peanut.
We got a queen.
We got a queen inside a cell. So we're very happy. I was a bit worried about this hive. It really came down raining in the middle of it. I wasn't 100% sure whether they had some eggs to raise a queen from, but it looks like they did. And there we have it. And you can tell there's a queen in there because it's capped. If that cell was open, you'd have a look down for a young larvae. But we're right where we want to be. They've raised a queen quite quickly, and she will emerge into the hive in this next few days, and then she will embark on her mating flight. And once she's mated and laying, this hive will be away, hopefully another thriving hive. And over here you've got the drones, which are the male bees, right? So they stick out a bit more than the workers, which you can see down here. You can see the worker bees. That's their brood. And up here you've got the drones, which is the males, and they just stick out like little mounds.
Yeah.
So very happy. This hive is away most likely. We will check again to make sure she's laying in a couple of weeks, and fingers crossed we've got another thriving hive and a successful split in the middle of a rainstorm.
Well done. That's so cool to see.
Normally you beekeep mid-morning to mid-afternoon on a nice warm sunny day, but last week we got a little caught out trying to...
Well, the weather does change very quickly and dramatically here, so
can
get you.
Can do. So that's great. I'm going to be very gentle when I put that back. I don't want to damage that queen cell, so I'm going to just gently go down like this and back into the hive like that. And one important tip when you are taking a split is push your frames together so the bee space is correct. Bees are very fussy about their spacing. They want their comb hanging about 32 or 35 millimeter centers, and if you left a gap like that, they build a massive comb in between, trying to create another comb in between the two frames, and then it's just hard to manage.
Okay.
So pushing them together, leaving the excess space on either edge is the go.
That's so cool.
Any questions coming in?
Oh yeah, great questions, and Matt, everyone's loving the questions you're asking too.
Oh, good.
Which is just awesome. But this is a question from Chef Wife Life in Berry. Oh, sorry, that's when I don't have a microphone. Chef Wife Life is in beautiful Berry on the south coast of New South Wales and has some beautiful mature orange trees. So she was just wondering, with a partner who is a chef, what hive would you recommend and why? So it's a bit of a cedar Matt question, that one.
Well, they definitely get some flavour from the orange blossoms in their honey. I know that much.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. But the best hive's always a fly hive, right?
Oh, right answer. So any of our hives are great for beginners. It's really, as we've gone, we started our Flow Hive 2 just to add more features. We got a lot of requests from the world of beekeeping, and but we've still got our original classic there. If you want that one, it's a bit of a price point there, depending on your budget, I guess. But the Flow Hive 2 I'd recommend, which is this one. It has the tray down the bottom, which just helps with pest management, especially if you've got the hive beetles in your area. You've got a screen bottom board where the hive beetles can drop through into some cooking oil below. You can use old cooking oil. Yeah. That'll probably attract them even more.
Well, this is the one we've set up at the pub yesterday.
Yes.
So we've got the Flow Hive 2.
Yes, and that tray. So yeah, if you get your old cooking oil from the pub, and just put a little bit in the tray down the bottom, you don't need to fill it up, just cover it, then it'll just assist your colony because the beetles will fall through and drown in that oil.
So basically it was like a paint rolling tray, kind of setup that we put in the bottom, and the cooking oil, and then so any of the beetles that are dying or coming through the hive, they just drop down into that. So it's kind of an efficient way, because then you can just slide it out and clean it. So it's just kind of those extra little things just to make it all a little bit easier, I reckon.
There you go.
There you go.
Right. Matt, another question for you. Do you ever use crystallised honey in your cooking?
I don't know much about crystallised honey, to be really honest. Is that kind of what's the process with crystallised honey?
So generally all honey will crystallise eventually. So
Yeah.
depending on the ratios of sugars in it will depend on how soon it will crystallise. So we've got honey around here that will go for years without crystallising, but temperature affects it as well. So where Trace is from, pretty much all honey is crystallised, isn't it? Because
It is, in New Zealand.
Yeah.
you've got those cold temperatures setting off crystallisation.
Yeah,
It's like
of
back
course.
to those days in the science room where you're trying to get crystals forming from a saturated solution.
Yeah.
And the seed crystals will affect it as well. So if you want to crystallise honey, because it's a fun thing to do and you can get different textures, and in New Zealand they'll often add a very fine candy, they call it, fine crystals to some freshly harvested liquid honey, and that will set off that crystallization structure through the honey, and then you'll get another fine candy. Whereas if you just let it crystallize on its own, sometimes you get huge sugar crystals, in which case the texture is just different, basically.
Yeah. But it's still it's still the same product, right? It's just used it's just different texture.
Yes.
So you can still melt it, you can still cook with it, you can still spread it on your toast. It's just kind of, nothing really changes in that regard, does it?
No, it's just it's fun. It's because even though the flavour should stay the same, somehow the experience in your mouth is different, and it starts to taste different as well.
Yeah,
so my kids love it. They call it the crispy honey, and they'll fight over that if they can find any.
Here's another one, Matt. JB's tuning in from Kent in England, and their question to you is, what do you think would be the best cheeses to have with honey?
Oh well, cheese and honey is one of the best combinations ever. I quite like a really hard, salty style cheese to play off with the sweetness. So Parmigiano Reggiano and honey is a very classic combination from Italy. They work really well together. I quite like honeycomb with fresher cheeses like brie and camembert, because of the textural thing. It kind of works really nicely. But then like some local cheeses like Pagnana cheddar from Tassie is really good. Running Cow is an Alpine style cheese from so in the style of Comté, but made locally here, but in Nimbin Valley. It's one of, I think, Australia's greatest cheeses. That with a bit of honey. Any cheese that's got a high salt content will always work. I think honestly for me, all cheese and honeys work. Even like blue cheese and nice like sort of darker treacle honeys will work. But again, just play around with it. But I suggest it because you pair cheese with something sweet, generally being fruit. But honey's a great way to do it, and I really do enjoy honeycomb with like a brie style cheese. So.
Yeah, totally.
Well, keep the questions coming in for Matt Stone here. He's got a wealth of knowledge when it comes to food and honey. So it's great. I'm learning things here.
Oh, so this is a crucial step, right?
Well, what I've done is I've pushed all the frames together.
And quite carefully to make sure there was no bees getting caught up.
Yes, you try and do as least disturbance as you can. Try not to squash any bees. Look, there's some nice orange pollen coming in. That's good. See on the legs there? Beautiful orange pollen balls. And ideally you see a range of different pollens coming in.
And that's just dependent on where they've been feeding or harvesting?
Yeah, depending on the flowers. So it'll change as the season goes, but if you can get onto like, some beekeepers will be specifically moving their bees to where there's great pollen. There's the red banksia down here in the heathland is some of the best pollen bees can buy.
Yeah, right.
And some beekeepers will move their hive specifically to there
To get that.
to get nice and healthy before they move on to another honey flow.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so pollens ain't pollens, I guess.
we're getting that question, Seeds, about like why you don't get stung, and Clinton's actually said he's just dying for a bee to go up Matt's pants and sting him, so he says it happens to him all
Settle
the
down,
time.
Clinton.
I know, exactly.
Maybe stand over here, Matt. Right in the entrance would be
No,
your best
I've
chance.
positioned myself well here.
Yeah. But you know, it is that thing. Neither of you are getting stung, and Cedar, you don't often wear gloves, and just wondering what you do to sort of stop them stinging.
Oh, look, if you don't wear gloves and you're manipulating frames, you will get stings every now and then. So it's a trade-off between, you know, not having the gloves on your hands, which is just a bit harder to work, and getting the odd sting. I'd prefer to have the odd sting on my hand. However, I don't like it on my face. The face hurts, can swell up more and so on. So you'll see me wearing a good bee suit or bee jacket in this case to protect myself from getting stings on the nose. Now, each to their own. Some beekeepers don't mind that, and they'll often be without a veil on at all, but I really don't recommend that. Protect yourself. New to beekeeping, wear your gloves, look after yourself, wear your pants when you're beekeeping, and make sure you're protecting yourself. Now, in this case, I was fairly certain this hive would be friendly, and we're on a nice sunny day, so as experience grows, then you can muck around with going gloveless and so on. A little tip when you go gloveless is just to smoke your hands to mask your own pheromones.
So does that mean I can smoke my legs?
Yeah, why not? I'll try not
I like that we did this at the end.
I'll try not to burn you, hang on.
And I think also, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Cedar, but like your attitude around it as well. If you're pretty like calm and chill, I feel if you're a bit frantic and stuff, did bees pick up on that, or?
You know, a lot of beekeepers say that.
But it's not really a bit of an urban myth?
I think it definitely is an element of that, but the main thing that determines whether bees are aggressive or not is genetics.
Oh, okay.
So you can have a hive that is just aggressive, and the calmest beekeeper in the world will get a lot of stings.
Okay.
So if you do have a hive that's hard to manage because they're very aggressive, then you'll need to get in there, take away the queen, a day later introduce a new one with some known genetics, and a month later there'll be a turnover of the worker bees and the guard bees, and it'll be a completely different temperament. And that's how you fix a hive that is.
It's like the Queen's fired all the angry staff and brought in the nice new ones.
Yeah, you just got a different general manager in the hive, and the whole thing calms down.
There's so many synergies between just life and bees, how they live.
Yeah. I mean, often people see the queen as the boss or the ruler to a hive, but she's really not. In fact, she will be killed sometimes to make way for a new queen that will lay more eggs. And she will also be kicked out against her will to create a new hive, and half the bees will kick her out and go off, and that's called a swarm. And they'll start a new colony and raise another queen here. So that begs the question, how do they organise themselves?
Yeah.
How do they do such incredible work? And they're one of the most industrious insects on the planet. They can produce ridiculous amounts. Like a hive can produce, in an extreme case, a huge 200-litre drum of honey in a single season, meanwhile pollinating billions of flowers. And you go, hang on a sec, how do they manage all that? How do they do this? And the only sort of sense we can make of it is it's like a well-organised hive mind, almost operating as a single organism, a group consciousness, if you like, that is a decision-making organism. And they can even, humans keep studying, they've even noticed democratic traits where bees will come back with their dancers to say where a good home is and so on. They'll need 15 or so votes in order to go to that new home and so on. So it's some type of group consciousness that makes the decisions rather than the queen. So we've got time for one more question. We're going to wrap up this live stream. Thanks for watching. We've got Matt Stone here.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
You were going to cut off me calling you a celebrity chef.
Yeah, I got you. Got you good, that one.
You got another question there.
All right.
Oh, fantastic. See, someone's just asking, does every hive have its own queen, or does the queen look after the whole apiary?
So every hive should have a queen laying eggs, and that's when it's queen right. And if you don't have a queen in there laying eggs, then you've got a problem with that hive that may need some intervention. So generally one queen in every hive. Thanks so much. We're going to wrap this up now, and thanks for Matt Stone coming in, asking the questions and answering questions from our audience, and I really look forward to trying the vinegar you've made.
As soon as it's ready, you'll be the first to try. I'll bring it down.
Excellent.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Okay. We'll put on this little inner cover and put this
still on there?
hive back together. Yeah, a lot of them have walked in.
Yeah.
So you can just shake them off, or simply get them out of the way off this rim here, and then gently put it down. One little trick is you can go on a slight diagonal, and that way if you've got a bee on the edge like over here, it'll be forced sideways rather than, and same here. This little trick where you can go sideways, and hopefully rather than squashing a bee, you brush it off that ledge there. Come on, out of the way. There we go. And we've got our little hive back together. Success here with a split. We did it in the rain last week, and they've made a queen cell, and they're on their way to being another pumping hive to produce a lot of honey and also do their amazing work we call pollination, which is so important to our food system. Thanks for tuning in. Same time next week, we'll have something interesting to show you. Let us know what you'd like us to cover, and if you've got answers to other people's questions, we'd love to see you chiming in. It's amazing to see a global community helping each other, learning from each other. And if you want to look at thebeekeeper.org, if you want an online course, have a look there. It's a great fundraiser as well, as we mentioned earlier.